Hey, good morning, everybody. So, today I'm going to walk you through how to edit a landscape photo. Now, I use Lightroom. Um, it's just a software. You could use anything you have. Actually, you can even use your phone. And I wanted to give you some tips on how to brighten up a dark landscape photos and maybe pop it up a little bit. Yeah, you can go ahead and use your phone. In the iPhone, in particular, if you have a photo, it says edit. And if you click on that, you have a whole row of options. And then what I walk you through Lightroom, they're actually the same in your phone as well. So you can just, do them in parallel. If you're out and about walking, you take some beautiful pictures and you want to share it with your friends and family around the world, maybe this will help you. Yeah? So let's get going. All right, so let's see how we can brighten this photo of the cheetah and the jackal where they're both kind of blending into the background, and how we can pop them out a little bit using Lightroom. So Lightroom has, if you can see going up and down, all kinds of things from exposure all the way down to saturation and vibrance. Right, so these are the same things that you would have on your phone too. And if you click on that little thing on the iPhone and edit button, you will see some of the same options that you have over there as well. So the idea here is to play around with all of these things to get you to kind of bring this cheetah out of from the background. So let's get started. I just increased the exposure a little bit, and as you can see, it brightens up the image, but it really doesn't do much in terms of, you kind of lose the details of the photos. So I'm going to back off on the exposure. Now, if you had a really dark image that you took, you could just bump up the exposure and brighten it up. Next, I'm going to come back to wherever I like the exposure to be. And now we're going to play around with the highlights. And as you can see, if I go back and forth with the slider on the highlight, the cheetah kind of stands out as I reduce the highlights. So if I have too many bright highlights, the background gets washed out. And if I reduce the highlight, then the background gets a little bit darker, and then so does the cheetah, because the cheetah has a lot of the highlights too. So we're going to find a happy medium there. The next is the shadows. So the shadows actually talk about this dark stuff that's going on in the background that you really can't see. If I pull out the shadows, you can see, you'll start seeing the details in the log back there. So you can either keep it over there or you can bring it back down. So let's see what else we can do. We could play around with the whites, but I don't think that's such a smart idea. Maybe pull out the shadows a little bit. We've already decided where the highlights are going to be. Let's see what the blacks do. So actually, if you move the slider back towards the black end, you can start seeing that the cheetah becomes darker, but so does everything else. So again, it's all about finding the right balance, right? What is it that you want to do? So I'm going to back off there again and maybe kind of set it up halfway there. Now, vibrance is another great way to pop out the colors. A lot of people like to use saturation. Saturation can kind of look fake a lot of times, right? So look at this. It's like turning all yellow. And even vibrance can do the same thing if you're not careful. So for these two sliders, I typically tend to go very light-handed because you can really push the envelope too far out where it starts looking crazy. Have you ever seen those crazy blue skies in some people's pictures? Kind of look unreal. That's what this is. So let's see. So we've kind of played around with a lot of things. So I'm going to talk about tint and temperature. So temperature, tint is actually either goes from the green end of the picture to the pink end of the picture, and you can start seeing how these two things change. So even on your phone, you should have a tint button. The temperature goes between blues and yellows. And sometimes these are helpful because, if you've taken a picture in an incandescent bulb and it's too yellow, you can kind of take it to the blue side. But that's what these serve to do. Um, Another way that you can actually edit your photos is actually focusing on specific colors and changing those colors. And you have those filters in your phone. That's exactly what they do. They actually go back between colors. So like right now, if I cut down on the greens, you'll see how my greens are getting smaller, my yellows are getting smaller, and you can, I kind of think like the orange and the reds probably would be better to pop the cheetah out, so that might be a good place to be. But generally those individual colors are what your built-in filters do. So sometimes if you're playing around with all these colors, you might find that it kind of looks, the picture looks, starts looking weird, and that's the reason why. So while I'm talking to you, I'm just kind of playing around with it to see what really speaks to me and what I like, and then that's what we're going to kind of stick to. Now let's talk about telling your story. So, for example, this one is about how the jackal was trying to lure the cheetah towards the deer constantly. I mean, we watched him, he kind of needled the cheetah to bring him back. So cropping is very important, right? Because, I had a lot of other extraneous stuff going on. But if I now cropped it, then my protagonist and my villain are both here together. Another way to kind of pop out the colors in your image is using what is called split toning. So, here I'm looking at highlights, and I can play around with the highlights. Highlights are the kind of the light part. And if I bring it all the way to the red, you could see, or the blue, um, everywhere the lighter part of the image is, it changes to that colors. Similarly, shadows, so part of the cheetah that's dark versus where the background is, where the mountain is, or the hill, I should say. So all turns a different color depending on when I play around with it. Sometimes your filters actually have built-in split toning, and that's why you see, highlights and shadows on your phones look a little different. Essentially, they have built in, how you want to make your highlights, whether dark or yellow, and your shadows, maybe blues or purples, whatever it may be. So, and you can adjust the balance of the highlights and the shadows accordingly too. Now, I think I'm pretty happy here the way this looks. So I think we are just going to stop here right now. Um, and you could go on and on as I'm talking to you. Look at this. I can't stop. Like I'm going around, moving around. I'm sharpening it a bit because we were, in a moving truck, and there might be some movement here. So maybe I'll sharpen the cheetah a little bit. Again, in your phone, you have that little triangle looking button that does the exact same thing. So you could, you could keep on doing this till the cows come home. But I think this is where I'm going to stop. And I hope you enjoyed this so far. Let me know what you think.